I'm just very, very curious about what you're going to do when you have level 2 and 3, because you did all these just with 2 days of training. So after 2 more days, I don't know if I'm being curious or a little bit scared of the things that you may accomplish. So hello, everybody, and welcome to another of our success stories where we travel all around the world to talk with certified facilitators that are using the Pro.Play method with PLAYMOBIL Pro to transform people, transform professionals, transform organizations. Today, I'm very happy to be here with Karl McCormack. Hello, Karl. Welcome.
Hi, Juan. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Yes, I'm very happy that you could join. And Karl, first of all, can you introduce a little bit about yourself, where you are, what you do?
Yeah, so my name's Karl McCormack. I'm a senior lecturer and a pedagogic innovator at Staffordshire University. That's in the Midlands area of the United Kingdom of England. I've been working for about 12 years in the university. I teach predominantly in the business school. I'm a forensic accountant. That's where my specialist area is. But to be honest, I teach all over. Using PLAYMOBIL Pro has certainly got me around the university and within the community as well.
Oh, that's cool. And I think that also you forgot to mention that you're a very creative person that inspires creativity around you and across the organization. You were a finalist of the Ideas World Cup and you had many creative initiatives. So that's an important part about you. You should present that when you present yourselves too.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thankfully, working in the university surrounds me with creativity, young people that are coming up with great ideas, businesses that are very innovative, and so yeah, it is a very creative area that I work in. Thank you.
All right, and Karl, you were trained on level 1 online. We have never met in person yet, which we need to change very soon. And but so I don't know the entire backstory of how you got into the level 1. What drove you into getting to know PLAYMOBIL Pro, getting to know about the method, and also how you have been applying it. So it will be good to know a little bit of your motivations to get trained, and also, well, if you have been using it, a little bit of an overview of what you have been doing with the method, because I can only guess that with a lot of students going around, you have a lot of opportunities to play.
Oh, definitely, yeah. And I think for me, I've always been quite a playful person. I've always kind of enjoyed that, particularly teaching accounting. It's very black and white, right and wrong, and I also have students in front of me that are like so scared to give me an answer in case they're wrong. But generally, we can learn so much more from people having the wrong answer, because then we can go through and think about the way that they've thought things through. So I've always tried to bring play into my teaching to try and reduce that, to make break spaces for people. And probably, gosh, we might have to go back about 3 years. I saw PLAYMOBIL Pro. I think it was advertised on LinkedIn or there's something, and I looked at it and I thought, oh, that's quite interesting. Looked into it in a little bit more detail and very focused on business and business generation. But I thought, do you know what? I'm sure I can use that and that idea within education. I wonder if I could use it in my lessons to explore concepts. And well, I went to the bosses and they said, Karl, you can't have any money. So I actually ordered some PLAYMOBIL on eBay and brought it into the classroom, tried to kind of work around it, and it worked to a certain extent. It was fine. And it worked enough for then me to go back to the powers that be and say, can I have a little bit of funding? I want to play around pedagogically. I want to see whether there's some type of teaching and learning style within this that we can develop further. And I was fortunate. I got a small amount of money, which enabled me to buy one of the kits. And then and this is like the breakthrough moment, I saw that there was Pro.Play training, and looked on the website, really professional, and it was inexpensive. And to be honest, the best investment the university's ever put in me, for the simple, the payback of it. Oh my gosh, started the session, I think it's about 1.5 years ago now. And it was great. The training that was given, the ideas, and really for me, I very much lacked confidence. And it gave me the confidence of sort of a theoretical framework. And I suppose from my accounting background, I quite like frameworks, I quite like processes. So to have and to come out of the training with a framework to be able to apply to any session that could come my way, and for me to have the confidence of a facilitator to be able to know that I was extracting the best out of the sessions that I would be running, was just brilliant. But honestly, it was really, really good. And I came back after the training, missing you, of course, and everybody else that was in the group. I started to apply it and started to see very different results than I was getting before. Yes, it worked before and it worked okay, but actually being able to design something in the background with the framework model just gave me much better resources and much better results, and the participants got more out of it as well. And then from that, we started to see things changing with the students. We started to see more engagement. We started to get some really good feedback. And I was able to go to a research project then called SCOPE, which is the Staffordshire Centre of Learning and Pedagogic Practice, and apply for some funds to try and expand this a little bit. Try and thankfully I got the award, and so now I am a pedagogic innovator at Staffordshire University as well. As
congratulations.
And then I was able to buy a little bit more kit, and that enabled me then to sit down with more participants and facilitate larger groups. But also because I'd gone from the starter kits into the professional kits, we could then start to really explore more things and more ideas. And it also enabled me to change up the scenarios and the sessions that I was running, again based on the methodology that I've been taught through yourselves, having that confidence to change that. So people were now coming to me and going, Karl, I've got this idea, or I've got this problem, or I've got this lesson. How can we make it more fun? Could we bring PLAYMOBIL into it? And I was able to sit down and design sessions around that, and again, using the methodology in the background. So as I then started to prove things and started to get really confident with it, I then applied to go to some conferences. So I've done the Chartered Association of Business School Conference over in Ireland. That was last year, and ran a session there, really around engagement with students in induction, so encouraging the student voice. And that can be quite difficult, because if you imagine, like, I suppose just like an icebreaker in business, it's applicable to a lot of people. But you've got that situation of people not knowing each other. If you can imagine students on their very first day at university, this big journey that they're about to go on. And what do? We go talk to the person next to you, tell them about yourself, and then you've got to tell us about that person. And oh, it's so much pressure. And you've got that whole tell me about yourself thing. And actually, I started to use PLAYMOBIL to explore that and to get these students to model themselves. And it's just amazing. I mean, I don't need to tell you, but people who then model, and that becomes their dialogue, that becomes what they're talking about. And it takes that pressure off looking at people. Everybody looks at their model, everybody talks about that model, but actually they're talking about themselves. But not only that, there's loads of insight that comes from it, from the way that people position the model, the items that they've chosen. And no matter what sessions I do, I always like just take that moment just to stand back as people are initially going through the models, going through the packs to try and find, and that delight that they suddenly get on their face, the smiles as they find an item that represents something to them, and that can be very literal. And I think that this is why I like the PLAYMOBIL. You can get just a literal thing. There you go. I've got a bird. I keep birds. That's it. Or very, very quickly, without having to think, not building stuff, but just take something and just go, do you know what? That bird can represent peace for me, or that bird can represent my religion, or my wanting to be able to extend my wings and fly. And nobody has to think about it. The participants just pick it up, and it's there for them, and it works. And so the richness of stories that we get, so much more than just tell me about yourself.
Right.
You start to see these connections. It's brilliant. So
it sounds amazing. I think that you're sharing three things. One is your own personal journey, right? Your journey from first a little bit shy experimenting to your confidence to play. And I love that during the training you build this confidence to play, to use play as a tool. Also, how you can transform what you are doing today in your organization, whether it's a business or it's in education. If you look at this organization with these new playful eyes, you can find opportunities to do better by changing what your traditional and maybe some outdated methods that don't work really well with more engaging dynamics and activities.
Yeah, and that's definitely it. It's the engagement that comes from it, because people have to tell you that story, want to tell you that story, and then there's the connections, and then suddenly somebody over there is like, I've got a globe, and that represents being international, or that represents me wanting to see the world in a bigger sense. And this connection that would never have happened before is suddenly there just because of a little bit of plastic. But nobody says, oh, it's a little bit of plastic. It always represents something to them, and it's brilliant. So that was the Chartered Association of Business Schools. That was the first conference that I did, and then I did the Playful Learning Conference. Oh my gosh, to go there with people that were of the same mindset of wanting to be playful in teaching, and it went down the storm, and it went down so well that then people were getting in touch with me and going, where can you get this from? Can you talk us through? And I'm like, go and see Pro.Play. You know, they'll give you this knowledge, and then from that I've done many internal sessions here, conferences, trying to raise awareness, and really my role's now moved from me just doing the sessions to very much how can we use this on the wider sense, and I've gone from the student population, so using it in classrooms to explore concepts like marketing concepts or change management, or even just to pick out loads of these that are assets rather than liabilities, and that type of thing, to the inductions of making people feel really comfortable. But then I've gone out to schools and got the outreach of school children to model themselves how they'll be as a student, and try and eke out of them the importance of going to university, the importance of that. And then I've got businesses, of course. You know, the university is connected to lots and lots of businesses. We've got a business hub, and one of the sessions that I've run probably only about 4 months ago now was to 140 businesses that came in. That was a big challenge to facilitate that. I need to come to level 2. But I did have some support on the tables there. And then we've had the community come in as well and model out how they want to work with the university, or model changes that are happening in the local community. It's so versatile, but it all stems from that confidence that a great methodology, great teaching, if you don't mind me saying so, by yourself, and I suppose that freedom to to try things, but knowing that there's something in the background that makes it work. It's just wonderful.
Thank you, Karl. And I think that I love what you share also about the connections, because I feel like we live in a increasingly disconnected world. We are more connected to technology, but we are more disconnected from our peers. And we, even you go to a restaurant and you see couples and each one is with their phone, and you go to a meeting and everybody's checking their emails while they're talking to you. And even you go to universities and you see 5 friends and they're all with their mobile phones. So connection has become something scarce. A lot of people leave their companies, leave their jobs, or even universities because they feel disconnected. And I think that fostering these connections, these deep, meaningful connections that couldn't have happened just within 8-second or 2-minute conversation, but happen through something deeper that you access within element, because the element allows you to access something deeper in an instant. And maybe it's your value, a core value that you have in your life, or maybe it's a strong belief and somebody connects with that value. And then suddenly your connection is much more than, yeah, we both like soccer or we both like whatever. Oh, we believe in the same things, or we see the world the same way, and we can connect in an instant through an object. And I think that those connections are what make, the difference for people and for organizations, because your connections are a big factor on your future success, especially when you're starting also a career or you're starting in the university. And a group, they are a very good predictor of your future success, because you will need other people to succeed. And having these connections is massive for a student. So I really love what you are doing in the university and expanding through businesses, because what you told about how a student starts a journey also applies to how an employee starts their journey in the company when they start the first position. And also they apply to anybody that, even if it's a senior level, they change positions and they have to plan their new future in this new position, or any changes that happen in the company or the organization. So I think that it's brilliant that you are using this in all these different areas. And I'm just very, very curious about what you're going to do when you have level 2 and 3, because you did all these just with 2 days of training. So after 2 more days, I don't know if you're being curious or a little bit scared of the things that you may accomplish.
Well, yeah, I mean, I want to do it. And if level 1 can give me this amount of knowledge and confidence and skill, because it is skillful facilitating, and being able to stand back and knowing when to stand back and just being able to ask those questions, you gave me all of that skill. But then, yeah, level 2 suddenly start that group focus, and then level 3 to be the trainer of the train. Just, can't wait. You need to sign me up, but it's just time.
It will happen. It will happen soon. And is there any? I know that you share a lot of different cases where you applied it. Is there anyone in particular that stands out besides the one that you share, that you say, oh, this moment in this training or with this person or in this setting, that you say, oh, this was a really big aha or a big transformative moment, and we got through Pro.Play. Do you have anything of that in mind?
To be honest, every session I get that feeling from it. I always discover, I either discover something about my own facilitation, or I discover something about the participants. God, and there's so many to choose from. Do you know, in the last year and a half, I've run 172 sessions.
Wow.
Nearly 3,000 people. It's just crazy.
That's amazing. That that puts you, in the top 10 facilitators from all around the world. I think there are very few facilitators that can brag of that kind of experience. And I do think that experience brings a lot to the table, because you can have the knowledge, but you need to apply it in order to transform it into practical skills and ultimately into wisdom, right? So I think that you got the knowledge, but you did a lot of things with it. So that's a big wow. And I think that's a big inspiration for a lot of people that may be hearing this, from someone that jumped from 0 to 3,000 people and 170 facilitations in the course of 1.5 years. So it's amazing for me. Congratulations, Karl, for the work that you're doing.
No, it's probably the process that works better than I work, to be honest.
It's a combination.
I suppose if there was one session when I got concerned that it wasn't working, and bear with me. It was I'd been invited to run a session, to design a session and facilitate it with the Ministry of Defence. So these were soldiers that were coming to the end of their term with the Ministry of Defence, and they were then looking at what the next part of their life looked like.
Oh wow!
And we run an apprenticeship course here. So this is where coming out of like the Ministry of Defence, they could study for 2 years back into civil life. They could get various skills around management and strategy thinking, and then they could hopefully find a job with their skills from both areas, and life would be great for them. So this was the first time that they'd been in the university. They'd been in for a couple of days, and as you can imagine, soldiers that have been in soldiering for a while, they're quite different people, and I was a bit concerned maybe the playfulness isn't going to work for them, maybe they're going to be a bit too manly, and had all the sets set out. There was 47 of them.
Yeah, just to it sounds scary for a play session, right? Because the first beliefs that you evoke when you think military, you think all these rigid people, very serious, follow the procedure, no time to play, life and death scenarios. So it sounds a little bit scary, at least the way that our minds paint these kind of professionals. It's like not the best environment to go and use PLAYMOBILs, right?
And for me to walk in there with my PLAYMOBIL kit. So I had it all set up. They'd just gone out on lunch, and they came back in. And the session that I designed with the methodology in the background was that they were going to model themselves now, and then they were going to model themselves as they saw themselves as a student, and we'd be able to talk about that transition, maybe how that would then lead them into the world beyond. And they came back from their lunch. All the kits were set out on the tables for them, and they all sat there. And it's the first time it's ever happened, and the first time since that it's ever happened. They all just sat there and they didn't touch anything. And I'm so used to people walking in a room and going, "Oh, look at this," and touching it, and because you can't. It's that tactile moment. You cannot stop just picking it up. It just almost calls for you. But they all just sat there. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's not going to work. What's gone wrong? And I went up to one of the sergeants and I said, why aren't you touching? Why aren't you playing? And he was like, you haven't told us we can. And they were waiting for permission, and I hadn't thought about that. So as soon as I said, go on, start playing, they just all dived into it, and the relief in me was, oh my goodness.
Wow.
And they started laughing and talking, and the noise level went up, and the smiles on people's faces. And then I got them to model themselves. There was a lot of guns and backpacks, but they modeled themselves. And then we had like a little bit, I projected things on a screen so people could see what other people had modeled, and we talked about it. And then I got them to model themselves as they would be as a student. And you know what? The models suddenly changed from being this solitary army type person, military person, to then suddenly having obviously a laptop and a desk. But family came around, and the rich conversations that we were having, that the changes would mean that they could then start to talk about what they were doing with their families. They could start to take time out. They could do things with their families, and the models became really rich, and the conversations became really powerful and strong. And you could see that, almost that realization of how the world is going to change for them as they went through this. And there was a lady that had been facilitating their sessions for the first 2 days, and then they passed them over to me for this session on the third day. She was amazed. She was like, the last 2 days, they've not really talked amongst themselves. They've definitely not laughed. There's not been this fun element and this discovery and this delight. And it was probably coming out of that session and being able to reflect back about the changes that had gone on, and how these rigid, trained people had suddenly become part of a group that could see a future, a very different future, but could share it and could laugh about it and could just relax. And I think that for me showed, I mean, I've got loads of examples that I could share. That was one of those transformational moments that I went, do you know what? If this worked, I haven't really got to worry that it's going to crash and burn at any stage.
Wow.
Wow,
that's amazing.
And I'm still in touch with those students now, and you know, they all took photos, and like a year later, they're like, well, no, it's about 4 months now, but they've started with us at the university, and that picture, that life has started to develop for them. And so many of them tell me that they still think back on it and still look at that model, and some of them think, oh, what have I missed, or what haven't I put in place that I need to now? So it sticks with those people. And you know, the facilitation that you helped me, or the facilitator that you helped me become, has really started to change and transform those participants.
Wow, that's an amazing story, Karl. That's an amazing story. For me, it was hard not to get emotional, because it's I've worked with a lot of traditional industries, and a lot of times you think that these kind of methods are for, you know, the Googles and the Apples and, you know, everything that is fancy and shiny and new. And the traditional sectors are the backbone of every country, and they are the ones that need these kind of creative methods the most. And this just show how deep you can get through play, because play lowers a lot of your inhibitions and of your barriers, and it really helps you not only to, in the previous example, we're talking about you connecting with others, but a lot of people is really disconnected with themselves, with what they want, with what they enjoy, with the life they want to create, and the opportunities that they have. Sometimes they are even not seeing opportunities that are right there. And being able to get them to that level of insight during a play, during something that they enjoy, because they're playing, they're enjoying, they're not, you know, doing a big therapy session with a lot of questions, and, you know, they're enjoying, they are laughing, but at the same time, they're realizing things. And this combination of, oh, hey, you can enjoy this transformational journey, you can enjoy this design of your life or your organization, your team. And, you know, work can be enjoyable because you're working on yourself, you're working on your future, but you're also enjoying. I think that's really beautiful. And what is most important to me is that these things are materializing. They took the pictures, they took the commitments, and now they are starting to transform these pictures, these models, into a reality in their lives. Because at the end of the day, it's not only what happens in the session, but it's what happens after, right?
And if I may just share, I suppose, very quickly.
Yes, of course.
And I did a session with some architectural students, way out of my comfort area, and they loved it, because 1 in 25th scale PLAYMOBIL, so they could build little models 1 in 25th. And you can imagine architectural students,
Yes.
they like doing all that. So gave them some tasks. These were final year students, gave them some tasks to build a space that they could use for whatever. And then we brought the PLAYMOBIL in. And they started to position all the figures and the items around and multiplied it up. And then very, I suppose, simply, I just put an indicator of some fire down, one of the little fireballs, and said, right, you've got a fire in this space. How are everybody going to get out? And you know, not one of them had put in fire exits.
Wow.
Not one. And then I brought in a little wheelchair, and I said, there you go. You've got somebody with accessible needs. Please bring them into your space. And they had to move things around and speaking to the students afterwards, no matter how much theory they'd had over the 3 years of becoming architectural students,
right,
and that they knew that they had to make it health and safety, fire exits. They knew that they had to make it accessible for a range of people. Until they'd modeled it, until they could then remember that session and the touching it, the tangible element of it, did it really become alive to them? Did they really understand? And and the feedback after that session was, I'm definitely going to have this at the forefront of my mind. And I think, again, what we do with the PLAYMOBIL Pro, it really does bring things into real life for them. It's not just theory on a board. It's not just somebody talking for the sake of it. A little bit like change management, where you're putting that process, that insight from above that you get by looking down on things is immense. You can't get it with anything else, in my opinion.
Wow, that's it. I think that we could continue these conversations for hours, and I'm sure that this is just the first of many success stories that we will be talking about, and I'm sure that we will be talking again in the future, so you can share more of the things that you have accomplished and the things that you have applied, because I think it's enriching for all the community, for the people that are still on the fence and are still deciding, should I use this in my sector? Should I use this? I think that it's also useful for the novel facilitator that just got out of the training and says, okay, where do I start? And I think that is also useful in shaping the future of the method and shaping the future of what we can do with it, because that is what a community is. It's not that somebody is saying, well, we go that direction. Is the community which takes the process and the tools, they mold it so it fits the real life needs and it better serves their communities. So I think that I'm very excited to see what the future will bring.
Wow, yeah, it can only be upward, can't it?
All right, thank you so much, Karl, for your time and the wonderful cases, and we will be talking again shortly, I'm sure of it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right, goodbye.
Cheers.